Okay, everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrell. It's August 8th, 2013. This is News and Views from the Nefarium. I gotta tell you, after 3 hours of trying to get online to get this News and Views recorded, I think I finally managed to do it. But there seems to be, once again, a lot of internet issues, so hopefully we'll make it through it. I do have a reminder that tomorrow night I have a vid chat. Hopefully there will be no computer or internet issues that we'll have to contend with. So that is still going on as scheduled. So please look for us then. We're going to start 8 o'clock Central Time as usual, go an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Keep your fingers crossed. This seems to happen every weekend that I get ready to do something. Google, I swear they're doing something, folks, and it's not all on my end with the computer. And speaking of computers, I talked to Georgianne Hughes earlier today, folks, and what she told me really just hurt. She told me that for the last month and a half, in spite of thousands of downloads on her site, she has received one donation of $5. So if she doesn't get enough money to keep her website and her show online, it will go down. So folks, I know that there's some of you out there that have donated to her, and I appreciate that. For the rest of you who listen to her shows and download them constantly without sending her a dime, remember, she pays for all of that bandwidth out of her own pocket. So please help Georgianne out. She does need the help. And I do want to thank you, all of those who've sent her donations to get her eyes fixed. Her eyes, she's going back in at the end of this month to her eye doctor to get a checkup on her eyes. Now, hopefully this thing is recording. I see the computer freezing a lot. So hopefully we're going to be able to make it through this. I have two articles, in fact, that I want to talk about. Uh, this article was sent to me. It's from Military and Aerospace Electronics. And it was sent to me by a regular reader of this website, Ms. PH. So thank you. And another article at the same time from Alex Jones' site. I don't often refer to his site, but this one's kind of important given what I'm going to talk about today. And it's a little off the beaten track. Normally I talk about geopolitics and some of those things. Today I want to talk about technology because it is entering into the geopolitical sphere rather directly. So this article is entitled "Electronic Warfare is Where It's At Today in Aerospace and Defense." And I want to read, I'll link this article for you. I want to read a couple paragraphs and then turn to the Alex Jones article because this is rather significant. We're in the middle of a new arms race and we don't even know it. The other one you'll remember, the Cold War. We all remember the duck and cover days, those of us that are old enough to remember those. The visible signs of that arm race were very palpable because you saw the missiles and the silos being built if you were close to those areas of the country. You saw the bombers taking off from Air Force bases and so on and so forth. This is going to be more hidden because it is electronic warfare and cyber warfare. This article states, quote, "On the 23rd of June, the U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, as we like to call it here, the Diabolically Apocalyptic Research Projects Agency, announced industry briefings on upcoming contracting opportunities in communications, electronic warfare, surveillance, navigation," note that one, "and battle management. On the first day of July, the electronic warfare activity started to accelerate with the announcements of 9 contracts from the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory for the Advanced Components for Electronic Warfare Phase Program to develop advanced and capable electronic and photonic components for tomorrow's electronic warfare systems. 2 days later, came an award from the U.S. Army Contracting Command at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, to Solera Defense Solutions in Herndon, Virginia, to develop planning software enabling warfighters to jam enemy communications, remotely controlled explosives, note that one, radar systems, and other radio frequency assets while safeguarding U.S. and Allied radio frequency systems. On the 8th of July came a $250 million contract to the Raytheon Company Space and Airborne Systems segment in McKinney, Texas, to build the next generation jammer, or NGJ, to enable the electronic assisted 18G Growler carrier-based jet to jam enemy radar communications and other radio frequency systems. And then I'm skipping one paragraph here toward the end of this article. Following quickly on the 11th of July came the announcement of contracts collectively worth nearly $74 million and awarded to 6 companies for DARPA's foundational cyber warfare Plan X project to conduct research into the nature of cyber warfare and to develop strategies to seize and maintain U.S. cybersecurity and cyber attack dominance. All right. Now, with all of that in mind, I want to concentrate on the 2 things that were said here in regard to navigation and remote controlled explosives. All right. With the modern battlefield being so dependent on exact global positioning, all right, smart bombs, smart weapons, and so on and so forth, all these things depend on exact global positioning. Cyber warfare is entering the picture now in the form of the ability to change slightly or greatly, depending on the requirements, the global positioning of target information. So in other words, you could literally now interfere with a foreign nation's navigation systems in their armies, in their air forces, in their fleets. Now I'm going to suggest that this may cause, just exactly as we saw with Russia buying more typewriters to circulate private confidential documents free of the hazards of electronic eavesdropping, this might force a return to more analog methods of navigation, particularly among the Navy. And of course, in fleet formation, we might see heavier use of semaphore and so on. But I want to talk about that radio frequency detonation or remote control of explosives. Because years ago, Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bearden talked about forms of weaponry that were electromagnetic in nature that could conceivably detonate explosives simply by electromagnetic interferometry, or what he called scalar physics. And I've even written about events like that during World War II on the Eastern Front, where it appears that a German regiment was subjected to some sort of electromagnetic weaponry that exploded all their ammunition cases. They found most of the soldiers in this German regiment dead with all of the ammunition in their ammunition cases exploded. And there was no real explanation as to why, other than witnesses in Russia saw a kind of bubble or ball of plasma over where the regiment was positioned. I suspect, in other words, that what we're looking at with this military and aerospace article is just the tip of the iceberg, and this is what we're being told. I suspect the next generation jamming technology that they're talking about is a little bit of a window into that world of electromagnetic warfare that I suspect has been going on for, I and others, that has been going on for a long time. Now, this is all part, toward the beginning of this article, of a new type of full spectrum warfare which, quote, includes traditional electronic warfare but adds optical warfare, navigation warfare, and cyber warfare. So in other words, they're talking about the ability to hack and change navigational systems. They're talking about the ability to tell you that you're in a position where you're really not. They're talking about the ability of cyber warfare perhaps to reprogram targeting information inside of enemy systems. And that implies an enemy ability to do the same in our own. So they're also talking about cybersecurity. This is the next arms race, folks. And I think what we're going to have to look at, almost as soon as I dug up this article, I was thinking in terms of predicting an inevitable response from the BRICS nations and Russia in particular, and almost as soon as I started digging around for indications of that response, I ran into an article on Alex Jones. I don't often refer to his website, but this is a particularly interesting article. It's found at InfoWars, and I'll link this for you. It's Russian military joins race to engineer killer robots. And I'm going to read the first 4 paragraphs of this to you because I think this is very, very significant. Quote, a Russian general, Oleg Ostapenko, told reporters on Wednesday that the Russian military will soon unveil a new generation of robotic combat vehicles. It's a unique robotic vehicle, Ostapenko said, quote, capable of performing a wide range of combat tasks, primarily including mine-sweeping and, in the future, direct involvement in combat action on the battlefield, unquote. Ostapenko also announced that Russia's military robots and other advanced technology that, quote, can see terrorists through obstacles and effectively engage them in standoff mode at long distance without injuring their hostages, unquote. The move by Russia, this is Alex Jones's website, appears to be an effort to compete with the U.S. military, unquote. So there it is, folks. You have Russia openly announcing that it is competing directly with the United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in the development of robotic technology for use on the battlefield. And again, I suspect that the Russians are not telling us the full story here. They no doubt have already developed their own version of automated drones, and I suspect that what we're really being told here is that Russia is going to match the United States tit for tat and develop its own version of DARPA if it hasn't already done so, and I suspect the reality is that they simply rolled their version of DARPA over from the Soviet era into modern times. So with everything else going on, this is yet another little indicator that Russia is going to be the fly in the ointment in the wonderful New World Order plans of the Anglosphere Western financial oligarchs. And where Russia goes, you're going to find China not very far behind. And eventually, I suspect you're going to see India and Brazil making very quiet, very subtle moves along these lines as they cement their relationship in the BRICS nations' understanding. So this is one to watch, folks, especially this electronics warfare business of next generation jamming. I suspect that what they're talking about is a more active form of jamming than merely interfering with an enemy or potential enemy's electronics communications. This is going to be an active warfare type of weapon, the ability to hack in by electromagnetic means into enemy installations, enemy computers, alter the data, alter their targeting. Now, one final note. The reason I find this very significant is that the implications of this little article, for those of you who've read Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, you'll recall that I referred to the research of Richard Hastings, a wonderful book called UFOs and Nuclear Weapons. And one of the cases that Mr. Hastings talks about in his book is a case where UFOs were able to turn off and then reprogram the targeting information in American ICBMs, or in the case of similar interference in the Soviet Union, they actually showed up at an ICBM site and began the launch sequence of Russian ICBMs and then turned them off. So this, I suspect, has ultimately a hidden UFO agenda. This is a kind of potential response to some of the things that we saw and recorded going on in our nation and Russia's militaries back in the 1960s and 70s. And I suspect that the ultimate target here may be whoever is flying around in those things and turning missiles on and turning missiles off. So an interesting thing to watch here, folks. And that'll do it for this week. News and News for the Nefarium. Please, those of you who are members, I want to thank all of you again, especially the new members. I want to welcome you to the website. The dear lady, you know who you are for your donations, and that gentleman in Chicago for yours as well. And please help George Ann out, folks. I'll see you on the flip side, everybody, and God bless.